this is Cheryl Alger from SassyCherylsDigis.com. Some of you know me as Sassy Cheryl. Most of you, or a lot of people, have written to me asking about how I color using my Wacom Cintiq. So I am going to show you the process with this image. This is what the finished image looks like, which is now available on SassyCherylsDigis.com. You can either find him under the snowman category, or you will also find him under the new products on the first page. So let's get started. Here you see the outline drawing, and I have the website listed here and the image name as well, in case some of you have not visited the site. This is how I begin coloring. I create a new layer, and I do this more frequently when I do licensing. I create a new layer for each color, because a lot of times with licensing you will get an email saying, oh, well, we don't like this color, we don't like that color on, you know, the jacket or the hat or the scarf or whatever. And instead of having to start over from scratch, excuse me, I can just simply delete that part of the image and put in the color that they want. Sometimes I do use my selection tool, and I will show you that. I can just pull up the areas that I want to color, and it will highlight them, and then I simply fill it in. Not always the best way to do it, because if your lines are not connected, as you see here with the star, it will bleed into that particular area. But most of the time I color all of my images by hand on the Wacom Cintiq, meaning I color in each line area. So there's his jacket. Let's go ahead and color his stars on his coat. I'll have to make it a little smaller here to get that in there. Most of the time when I do color, I fill in all of the image first, and then I go back and do the shading. Let's get the scarf color here, which is a green, and that's a little darker, so I have to pull it up. But I do this for each particular area and color his scarf. And I don't particularly care about staying in the lines right now, only because I can erase it, or with the shading it will color those, fill in those areas that I have missed. So we have his scarf, and actually his gloves are the green as well. So we'll quickly fill that in. Right now I'm using a charcoal on this particular image, which gives it a little more texture look. So this isn't too boring for you all, that you did ask, so I'm showing you how I do this. Fill in his scarf. And as most of you know, because I used to have the Color Me challenge, coloring is fun. This is my favorite part of doing the whole image. But I do have a huge problem with my colors that I choose for the image. I know most of you who use the digi stamps for your cards and stuff like that, a lot of you pick out the inspirational papers that you're going to use to color the image, which is a lot easier because I really have a hard time with it. So scarf almost colored in. Like I said, I try to stay in the lines, but if not, I can select outside the image and get rid of that. So now let's color the little area on his jacket, little trim. And as most of you know, red is my favorite color. And I use a lot of polka dots and stripes in my images as well. Just like to give it a little detail. And his shoes are gray as well, grayish black, so we'll just color those in. And most of the areas that you see that are white, like his face and his body and stuff like that, I just, with the snowmen, or even with socks and things that I do for the little boys or little girl images, I just usually leave that white because the background is white, and with it being saved as a JPEG, which is a image file, I just usually leave it that way because it doesn't show up like it would in a transparent image. So we get his little scarf here on his hat, or trim, whatever you want to call it. And as most of you know, snowmen are my favorite thing to draw. Not a big fan of winter. Don't care for cold weather, but I love when it comes around this time of year because I do get to do my snowmen. I have done others that have been not winter related, done for Easter, and just basic snowmen for certain times of the year, but the winter image snowmen are my favorite. I'm just picking my colors here. May not be exact as the finished image, but you'll get the idea. And his scarf is yellow in between, so we'll get the yellow. He really starts to come to life at this point. And anybody who has actually spoken to me through email or on the phone, I don't do boring snowmen, or at least I try not to. They have to have a personality for me. So let's get the color of his hat here. Fill that in. These are little snow tops that he has on his hat, so I'm going to leave those white as well. We'll take care of that with the shading. Need to make that a little bit bigger so that I can get it done quicker. I'm not very patient on this part when you have larger areas to fill in. As I say, a lot of times I will select the area and color it in just because I'm a instant gratification person and like it filled in very quickly. So there's his hat, and we'll get his buckle. Color this part in. It looks a little worse for wear right now, only because he's not shaded, but you get the general idea. Then what we'll do his stick arms. Sometimes I use the stick legs as well. Those are some of my favorite to do. Makes them taller and gives them a little bit of extra personality. Okay, so we're going to leave that white and that white. Let's do his soles on his shoes. And most of the time at this point, I will go ahead and create a new layer and do some kind of shading on the bottom instead of just having him standing there with nothing going on as far as the snow or the grass. He certainly wouldn't be standing on something just completely white. So we did that. That's a separate layer that I did that on. Okay, now with this one, I'm just going to use my selection tool and get the color for the word winter here, because that just takes too long to color in. Told you I'm not a very patient person. So I just pick that up and fill that in. So that is the general idea of how we start. And now we'll go back in and pick up the color, make it a little bit darker, and use my Prismacolor pencil to shade give him a little depth. And believe it or not, even though I was an art major at Mary Baldwin back in the late 80s, I'm not very good at deciding where the light is shining. Only because I'm not a, excuse me, I am not a real life drawer, so I really don't think about that. I just put the shading in wherever I feel it needs to be done, around the buttons and his scarf. And a lot of times I will pick up a little bit lighter color and give that a little light in there, make his jacket look kind of fuzzy or whatnot. And then of course I will create a new layer to give him, I call it detail, that's the way I usually name it. Give him his little polka dots on his jacket here. So that's the general idea of his jacket. So let's move on to the scarf, do the little shading there. And again, I'm using my Prismacolor type pencil. It's just called colored pencil, but I like to say Prismacolor. I do have tons and tons of actual Prismacolor pencils that I do use on occasion, but I don't do a lot of what I call real life drawing because it's so irritating when I don't like the colors that I've chosen that I have to start from scratch. So that's why I enjoy coloring on the computer so much, because if I don't like the color, I just delete that particular layer. I am using all one layer this time because the image is finished, so I'm happy with the colors that I chose. I do spend a lot more time on the image to get it exactly the way I want, but I just wanted to show you a general idea of how I do this. Oh, and I forgot his little hearts on his thing there, so let's color these in. Okay, do a little shading of the orange here. Him with a little lighter orange, do a little more shine. It's not coming out exactly. And let's move on to his nose here. I love Snowman's nose. Occasionally I will draw, well actually I don't know that I ever have drawn one for the site that has had a button nose as far as a piece of coal. I just like the carrot look. I don't know why. Just like the carrot better. Let's go ahead and do his hat here. And you can see the eyedropper. When I push that, it pulls up the exact color that I used, and then I can go down a little bit darker. Oops. Yes, I do color outside the lines. Alright, let's go ahead and give his face a little bit of blueness in here. Sometimes I'll use a lighter tan kind of color for their faces, the snowmen, but a lot of times they look dirty to me, so I usually use a lighter blue. And I'll use a little bit of gray here on his shoestrings. Let's go ahead and color shade his shoes while we're here. And I do use a pointed stump, just like a lot of you do with your drawings, to blend the colors. I don't always do that, but sometimes it just looks too rough that drives me nuts, so I have to fill in a little bit. Let's get his little coat here. Give that a little depth. Let's go ahead and do his arms. And it really starts to come to life after you do the shading. Just love my little snowman. His soul holes on his shoes. And like I say, I'm not being as precise as I would be if I was actually doing it for the site. Just want to give you the general idea. A little snow top in his shading there. We'll do his hat. I do use a lot of cross hatching like people do with pen and ink. It varies, just depends on my mood. Have a little sun-kissed depth. I might blend that just a little bit. Okay, that. Now let's put the detail in his scarf. Those are just simple straight lines. Have to do the squigglies as well. And I used white for those. And like I say, this may not be exactly as the finished product, but you get the general idea. Okay, so let's move on to the winter. I just give that a little bit of shading. It's not that big a deal to me. Thought about actually leaving it white, but just give it a little bit of depth. I just think less is more when it comes to the actual shading. I just love this Cintiq. I've had it for about 2.5 years perhaps, and it's just so nice to be able to feel like you're actually drawing on paper. It's just a nice feel. So let's go ahead and put the white polka dots in here. And I just do them at random. There is no rhyme or reason for this. And I think that's pretty much it. There you have the Snowman Winter Fun image from start to finish, and I hope you enjoyed it, and just give me a little feedback if you'd like to see more. Alright, thanks.